Hello and welcome to Mounted Archery with Ken. I'm Ken Queen. I talk about all things mounted archery. Last video I talked about selecting arrows for greater accuracy. It was a very lengthy video and I apologize for that. And I promise you I will get to the parts of that video where I need to go more in depth perhaps. And today though, I want to talk about proper fitting and setup for a bow for a mounted archer. So let's get to it. So one of the first things I want to talk about is something that most mounted archers don't really think about. It's kind of a falls, in the hunter's realm of string silencers. So why would I want a string silencer on my mounted archery bow? Well, it's simple. String silencers are on a bow to prevent an animal from being frightened by the sound of the bowstring. So the animal that I don't want to frighten in mounted archery is, of course, my mount, my horse, my equine partner. And so I put silencers on my bowstring. The ears of a horse are a lot more sensitive than a human's ears. I mean, they are a prey animal when it gets right down to it. And they rely on all of their senses a lot more than humans do. So their ears are more sensitive. And if you release bowstring, particularly like on the front shots, that long shot at the tower, then that bowstring is going to be up close to the horse's ear, and it can be aggravating to them. It may not hurt their ears, maybe it does. At any rate, I like to try to minimize that as much as I can, keep my horse as comfortable as possible by putting string silencers on my bow. And silencers they're very easy to come by. Any archery shop's got them. And these just happen to be made out of beaver fur, and there are a lot of other materials out there, a lot of synthetic materials that, you walk into an archery shop and the whole wall will be full of different kinds of silencers. And they're all very simple to install. And basically all you have to do is separate the strands on a string. You can do it by hand if you like. And you would insert the silencer in. Some of them then you would wrap around and then tuck back in again. And others you would just insert them in, let the string go, and then sometimes just tie around. But they're all very simple to install. What you would need to do then is, you can look this up, to heterodyne tune. So how do I do that? It's really very simple. You can see on this string I have silencer on the upper part of the string and on the lower part of the string. And they're different distances from the end. And so how did I come up with these distances? That's, like I say, it's very simple. You measure the length of the string and then you divide that by 4. And the number you come up with, you measure down from your top loop to place your top silencer. Now you go back to your overall length again and divide that by 3. And a third of the length is where you place from the lower loop, the lower nock, is where you place the lower silencer. And the science behind it is it cancels out both peaks of the sine wave that this, that sound travels on. So heterodyne tuning, again, you can look that up, and that's really about it. And you know, you got kind of a dull thump as compared to so that's the difference, and that's why I like to put silencers on my bowstrings. They're not necessary, but hey, if we can keep our horses, our equine partners a little more comfortable, a little happier, why not do it, right? So beyond that, let's say that you've either let's say you bought a new bow, okay, and you get it home, you string it, and there's a few things that you need to check. Sometimes the strings that come with the bows aren't going to fit you, your shooting style, your nocks. And so we'll start with the nocks. And this string right here, I made to fit a fang nock for the person that shoots them. So take a nock, it can be on an arrow, but you take a nock and you put it on the center serving and see how it fits. And this one is just what was ordered. It doesn't snap on at all, and it slides up and down very easy on the string. So that's one of the first things you need to check on your string is if your nock will even fit that center serving. Well, what if it doesn't? What if you snap it on there? That's really on there too. You snap it on there and it's way too tight. Well, you do have some options. The easiest one would be to replace the center serving, and it's really simple to do. I'll do a video on it if there's interest in that. So you can change the size of the thread that you use for the serving to better fit the nock. That's the simplest solution. The other solution would be to order another string. So you need to check that. That's one of the first things you need to do. And the next thing you need to check is your brace height. Brace height is the distance from the string to the grip, okay? And I do it this way on most bows. This dimension, my fist with my thumb sticking out, is approximately 6.5 inches. So, and that's about what we've got here. There's just a little bit of room there. So I got a pretty good idea. The other thing, not everybody's got the same size hands as I do. But you can take a bow square and place it against the inside of the grip like that, and then you can read the scale. And here, sure enough, I've got 6.5 inches. So check that brace height. Now, different design bows are going to have a different brace height, and that's not a problem. You kind of need to know what the design brace is. Now, most bows are going to fall in to that 6.5 to 7.5 inch. I say most bows, most mounted archery bows, most Asiatic style bows are going to fall into that 6.5 to 7.5 inch range on the brace height. And so if you're somewhere in that range, you're probably okay. Custom bows, you're probably going to know from the bowyer what that brace is, where that bow is designed to shoot. And that's not necessarily set in stone. Every one of these bows is an individual, and so that brace height can be adjusted a little bit, either by changing the length, by changing the length of the string. A couple of different ways to do it. Just replace the string with a shorter or a longer one. A longer string is going to give a lower brace height. A shorter string is going to give a higher brace height. And or you can twist this string That's probably the least preferred method of shortening this, an endless loop type string. But you can twist it and shorten the string up slightly, or if it needs to lengthen, you're not going to have much luck there. So why would I do that? The lower your brace height, the faster this bow will shoot to a point. If you go too low, you risk damaging the limbs on a bow. So you don't want to go with too low of a brace height. And a higher brace height, it may not shoot quite as fast. So there's a perfect spot for that brace height on each bow, and it can be just a little bit different. The materials in every bow are slightly different, but it is one thing that you can manipulate to some degree. So now we'll say that this string, it fits our nocks. The brace height is right. One other thing on the center serving that I probably should have mentioned earlier is whether you knock over or under your nock point with the arrow. And where this center serving is located on the string could help or hurt you. Generally speaking, a run-of-the-mill string that you get is going to be served more for like a Mediterranean shooter, and the serving will be shifted down slightly from center of the arrow pass. If you knock over, you're going to want that center serving a little bit higher. So that's another consideration when you buy a string. When you order a string from me or somebody that builds them, you need to let them know if you knock over or under. And there's no right or wrong whether you go over or under. Some people say that it's more intuitive to put the arrow on the string and come down to the nock point. And for me, I've always, my entire life, come from the bottom up against the nock point. So it's, your body mechanics, what you've trained yourself to do, as to whether you over or under the nock point. Sometimes it might be your quiver style, the way you draw. If you're coming up, it might be easier just to come up into the nock point. If you're coming down like out of a back quiver, perhaps come down onto it. Again, there's no real right or wrong. It's whatever you work out that works best for you. So now I've talked about a nock point, and this string doesn't have one. Why wouldn't we put a nock point on? Well, let's just do that. Now, I knock under. So what I do, knocking under, is when I get this on here, try not to make a long video again. All right, so I've placed this on the bowstring, and I've got the bottom of this square right at the top of the grip leather. Arrow pass is just above that. So when the square is against the bow, basically the arrow pass is covered up by the square, and I can see the whole grip. And the reason I do that is for my hand placement on the bow. I always try to put my hand right at the top of the grip. It's comfortable for me. It assures that I have the arrow basically at the same place on the bow, almost like a shelf. I'm used to shooting off of a shelf with other bows, so that's why I do it. So now put the bottom of this square, because the bottom of this square corresponds with the 0 mark over here on this scale. So that's my 0. Now from that mark, because I'm nock under, I'll go up 1/2 inch, and I'll take normally a Sharpie. This is just a ballpoint, but I take a pen and I mark 1/2 inch, okay? And I get a pretty good mark on there, all right? Now, pull off the square, and I'll place nock point, and this is just one of those little, let's see, can you see that? Just one of those little brass nock points. You can get them pretty much anywhere. Most people are familiar with these. I thread wrap a nock point on there. Again, that's another video. If at any time there's something that I'm talking about and you want more in-depth, you want more information on it, then drop a comment in there, and it tells me what I need to make another video on. And sometimes as I'm making these, something like that comes up, you may want to know how to do a thread nock, so, or nock point. So that's kind of what I do. Put the bottom of this nock point right on the 1/2 inch, the little mark that I made that's a 1/2 inch above. Now what I do is put my square back on here, make sure I'm at the same spot. I look over here. Yeah, that nock point is, my mark was right on. So now I take the nock pliers and I go ahead and lightly crimp this on, okay? I don't want to get too carried away, and just so it doesn't move up and down, and but it's crimped on to the string. If I go too tight, I can damage the string, so we don't want to do that. We don't want to cause damage to the string in the long run. So what if I knock over? Well, I'm going to want this arrow to sit in about the same spot, all right? So the difference is basically the width of my nock that I would change, and this is about 3/16 of an inch thickness. So instead of a 1/2 inch, I would be 3/16 of an inch below that to place my nock point. Then I'd come in and slide down to it. So it's pretty simple math, and the person making your strings, if you don't make them yourself, you can have that conversation with them, and they'll know exactly where to put that nock point. So that pretty well sets your bow up. There's some other things, well, while we're talking about it, that's a threaded nock point, tied on nock point. And why do I like that? Well, it's just easier on my fingers, it's easier on the string. It's something I've used for years, so that's really, again, so much of this is personal preference, no right or wrong. The other thing to consider, I mean, different string materials, but you need to know if your bow is if it's capable of using like a fast flight type string material, or if you just need to use a regular Dacron string. Most bows anymore these days, fast flight, but you need to check with the manufacturer, with the bowyer, and what they recommend, what they'll warranty. So this bow is my wife's bow, and when she got this bow, it had a pretty thick leather grip on it, and it was really a thick leather grip, and it just felt bulky in her hand. She could shoot the bow just fine, but if she got, you know, a few arrows in her bow hand to shoot out of her hand, that sort of thing, it was just too much in her hand. So we removed that, and this is very, very, very thin leather. It's I don't know, like I'm not sure, 2 ounce maybe. It's very thin suede leather that we stretched on here and tied on, and fits her hand. She loves this grip now. So that's something that that you need to take into consideration buying a bow, is the grip style. Will it fit your hand? I've got pretty big hands, so I have a little bigger grip, but if I have more than 4 arrows in my bow hand, it's a bit much. If I had a smaller grip, I could probably comfortably have 5 or more arrows in my bow hand. So that's all. Again, personal preference, no right or wrong. Whatever you train yourself to. These are helpful hints to things that you might want to think about, things that you can do with your bow to tailor fit it to you. And beyond that, that's all I have for today. I'm sure everybody is cheering that this is not an hour-long video. And again, if any time there's something you want to see, maybe I haven't even covered it yet, drop a comment in there. Hey, why don't you talk about this at some point? And I'll do it. There's one thing I can do very well, and that's talk. So maybe I don't make good videos, but I can talk. And so drop a comment in there, subscribe, then you'll know when it comes out. And at any time, if you wish to order a bowstring or some arrows, or any of the other things I make, you can click the link in the description, in the video description, and it'll take you to a form, and you can tell me what you're looking at, and then you and I can have that conversation, and we'll get you set up. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.